We are with Stuart Allen and Frank Zabel of CICO Consultants, the designers of the Tornado Tower in Doha, Qatar, which is the winner of the Best Tall Building Award in the Middle East for 2009 in the Middle East or Africa. And this is Stuart, and this is Frank, and welcome to Chicago. What
Thank you very much.
What a building. And the first question that I have to ask you is, being from the central United States, we kind of think of tornadoes as being our own, and I wonder where you got the whole inspiration for this tornado thing.
Whilst the Middle East region doesn't actually have tornadoes as you have here in North America, we do have what we call swirling dervishes, which when the wind blows in the arid desert region, you do get little spinning, about 4 feet tall, spinning across the desert. So that, I'm sure, well, put it this way, with the sophistication of the building, that concept was very pleasing to our clients.
And something very indigenous to the region.
On the basis that we were looking at a modern, sophisticated building within a desert region, the actual concept of locality and the type of situation that occurs within the Qatari Peninsula, that was how the client evolved with us to get that particular shape.
This building is such an interesting story on such a number of levels. First of all, in the appearance, which it's a kind of a hyperboloid shape, and it's got an exterior diagrid supporting system, which I guess leaves column-free space inside. Is that right? And a light show that there's some real light shows on tall buildings these days, but nothing like this. And I'd like to talk about the evolution of this building. Tell me about the client and what they were after.
Okay, the client is one of the leading investment companies within Qatar, and they were looking for a building which would stand out. It was, in fact, a design competition, and several high-ranking international architectural practices were invited to enter the competition. The client themselves were looking, or are still looking, for ways to enhance the urban environment within Doha. The urban environment in Doha is such that prior to 5 years back was unfortunately fairly basic. But now it is totally different with innovative designs, which is what the majority of clients are looking for.
And I think one important issue is that this competition was done by CICO with a German joint venture partner, and the owner of CICO has studied in Germany, and he knows the way of technical accuracy in design, which was important because in these days there were not so many highly sophisticated buildings in the area, and due to the joint venture of a German architectural firm with a local partner who was educated in, let's say, European or Western standards, makes this happen. So we got a good approach to the client and a really basis of trust. Sure. And then bringing together these two fields of experience makes finally this project happen, because it was really a question of education in design, because the clients were not used to this type of complex buildings.
This is an evolving market, certainly, because one of the things that got my attention is that CICO Consulting, your firm is a Qatar firm. It was founded in Doha in 1967, which I'm thinking of what was in Doha in 1967. That's amazing. The evolution that you've seen. Tell me about that.
Okay, Doha in the late 60s, early 70s, yes, was a very basic situation. The fact that, if you like, following the independence of Qatar from the British overseer back in 1972, the then Emir elected to say, right, we are going to do something with Qatar. And from that, all this has evolved from a situation of the locality of the business district of Doha, where Tornado Tower is located. If one looks back at historical photographs and the like, it's virtually unbelievable that in such a short space of time, this situation has come about. The fact that from a reclaimed land situation to what we have today, the skyline of Doha's West Bay district is quite remarkable.
And when has most of this come about? Has it been the last 10 years?
Maximum 10 years.
Really?
Yes.
So
Yes.
5
Yes.
to 6 years.
Because I look at your building, and there are some taller buildings around there, so it certainly stands out, but so all of this development has been recent. Tell me about the design competition for this one, because you were in there against some big boys, and you walked away with this job, a mid-sized firm, and certainly came up with a distinctive design. If this is your design in the design competition, I can imagine what some of the others were, or is that not the case?
I think we were informed at the end who were the competitors. We were not informed at the beginning who will
True.
participate on the competition. So
Uh-huh.
we were a kind of virgin, you know. We had our plates like these ones with a proper design and visualization. But then knowing who were the competitors who entered the room with walls of plans and visualizations like SOM, you know, it was like the small one in the corner, but finally the client likes the design and was not only looking at the type of presentation, because of course it was very good done, but not as people are used. If you have US based or the big designers of high-rise building, they know pretty well to present their projects, you know.
Were the other projects, for lack of a better word, safer? Were they quite as, I won't say radical necessarily, but as different as your design
Yeah,
was?
they were more standard.
More standard. Yes.
So
Yes.
based on rationalism, I would say, you know, this type of building is from a structural point of view very safe. We could have built this building 400 meters high due to the hyperbolic structure. But on the other hand, you know, you have varying floors, spaces, you know, on the bottom it's 50 meters diameter,
Yes.
in the middle it's 30.
30.
Yeah, so
Yes.
you have different floor plates, which is from an organization point of view not optimal. So if you try to design an optimal building, you are restricted in shaping and what you will do. But there we knew that in this country the people want to have something special, which is not only based on
I think-
theory and practice.
I think also not only utilizing a shape which is relatively common in the desert areas, but also the fact that it is a corner site, and from an architectural point of view, to get your elevations right, looking from various directions on a corner site is not the easiest thing in the world. So in order, you know, it served two purposes. If you've got a circular building on a corner site, therefore you have excellent elevations from any direction that you look, and coupled with the fact that it is very close to the water, so the higher up the building you are, you have a very, very good view over the Gulf, and everything fitted in perfectly. The site is not overdeveloped, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It stands on quite a large plot of 18,000 square meters. We have 3 basement car parking for the inhabitants of the tower, and that accommodates 1,700 cars. And we have ground level visitors car parking. So the whole mass blended together, which from a competition point of view, I think the client went for it.
Well, the whole package between the shape and the light show and everything on here, what was the client's reaction when they saw this design?
We have to admit that the light show was something which was added at a later stage.
Okay.
So,
yes.
of course, we had the view that in some way the building should be illuminated during nighttime. But during the design process, we could engage a light artist from Germany, Thomas Emde, who did the design, or this artificial design. So finally, it is art,
Yes.
and that was something the client had to learn. He was not buying a technology. He was going to an artist with white trousers, yellow shirts, and red hair, selling a
Yes.
Qatari
Yes.
individual
Yes.
this type of light art. But he loved it very much, and must say that the client itself was a very, very smart
Yes.
person to understand the power within the design and the light art, which will help him to have a successful project at the end of the day, to get it rented and maybe sold, whatever the target is. But it's unique, and everybody who was involved during the design and construction time
Which
is
of
proud
course-
to be part of it.
Which of course reflects back on our client, CICO Holdings, that they are a very forward-looking investment company.
Well, you
They're
mentioned
looking
that there
for-
was a certain amount of education that had to go on
Yes.
with this client, which in this market I guess is not surprising because you mentioned that international design standards really didn't start applying there till 2005, where they were asking for basically world-class buildings. What kind of challenge was that to really let them know what was available and what they should be looking at and what they should do?
Right. I think the building regulations, for the want of a better word, within Qatar were originally based upon British standards, historically, with the United Kingdom being in the area. But as time has evolved and more international architects, designers have come into the region, a total rethink was necessary, because if we're talking about North American, Japanese, British, European, whilst the codes of building construction or building design are similar, they do have subtle differences. So again, deep thought was put into it by the Qatari state individuals. As an example, the life safety situation within these towers is now based on NFPA, fully and completely. And again, reflecting back on our client, not only did we consider that in our design we had satisfied NFPA, a third-party review, independent review, was carried out on our life safety systems design, and therefore a certificate was issued by that third-party consultant, who was from North America, to say yes, the building, or to state that the building is fully NFPA compliant. This has, if you like, it's been a fear almost that prior to the more upmarket, updated, sophisticated designs, the actual the fact that you are 200 meters in the air has given rise to a certain, not necessarily a nervousness, that they want to ensure that not only that evacuation of a building can be carried out swiftly and quickly. So the evolution within Qatar has been quite quick, but yes, it's over the last 5, 6, 7 years that this has evolved. So there has been a learning curve both for clients and the statutory authorities and so on and so forth. But we're there.
Was there a certain amount of education in what they wanted, just overall aesthetics and design? Because I don't know that you, and maybe I'm wrong, that you had a lot of culture to tap from.
Yes.
A lot of
Yes.
established
Yes.
motifs, for example. So,
Yes.
and you came up with this with the tornado, which was probably a stroke of genius in their eyes, because it seems like some builders in that part of the world tend to look to other places in the world and, well, gee, we like this, we like that. Was there a certain educational aspect in helping them come up with something that was uniquely theirs?
Yes, on the basis that other buildings that CICO have designed have always had an Arabic influence in connection with arches, colonnades, and so on and so forth. Now, to get into high-tech, high-rise, updated buildings, you've still got to try to maintain the Qatari or the Arabian feel. Hence the reason with the tornado, as I mentioned earlier, it is an environmental phenomena of a little swirling dervish across the desert, and therefore, you know,
But
this design.
This geometric pattern is something which you will
Plus,
always find in the
that's
Islamic
true.
architecture.
That's true.
You know, there are some different ways how to combine these motifs into architecture. Some where directly that they use patterns in the design, but I think this geometric routines or this system also reflect the idea of the geometric pattern in the
Certainly,
Islamic
yes.
world. And what you were asking, I think, yes, the client was aware that this was a unique design. It was not a copy of something which you might have seen somewhere over the world. And I think that maybe was also one of the reasons that he decided to proceed with this design, because he did not see anything else before.
Was there a certain temptation on their part that, gee, we kind of like this building in China and the way it looks, and we'd kind of like to do something like that here? Was there a certain amount of that?
I don't think so. Not really. No. I think.
So you were able to go in with a pretty clean slate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I also feel that with the historical knowledge that CICO have attained over these 30, 40 years that CICO have been in Qatar, that assisted tremendously, I feel.
A couple of the technical things of the building, this hyperboloid shape, you have an exterior structural system that supports the building, and you have an inner core. Could you discuss the constructability of this and just how the building is put together?
Okay, the inner core, which of course contains the lift shafts and electrical and mechanical rooms and facilities, toilets, washrooms, and the like, that was structurally designed as a concrete core capable of standing 200 meters on its own. So that was the first situation that we constructed. It's on a pile draft foundation because reclaimed land, dewatering was a problem, but the core itself was slip formed. So we have a continuous moving vertical formwork, of which the verticality was checked every 5 levels to ensure that we had the verticality. But the structural steelwork outer diagrid, now that did give a certain amount of problem, which was overcome extremely well by the steelwork people ever Sendai, because we are talking about straight, the steel itself is not curved, the steel is straight, but the angle at each level is slightly varied so that visually it looks as though you have a curve going up the building. So to get that angle accurate so we say thank you to computers. The floor plates themselves, they are of composite construction, profile steel sheet decking, riveted onto radial beams and a concrete topping. This obviously eliminates shuttering, table formwork, whatever, but it also, in this shape and form, gives you a column-free office area.
And you have floor plates of varying sizes just due to the taper of the building, and your floor
Yes.
plates are all
Yes.
basically from the core on out to
Yes. Yes.
the diagrid.
Yes. Yes.
I was told that keeping this building clean on the exterior was something of a challenge for you. Describe how are you addressing that?
Okay. There is a facade cleaning machine situated on the roof, which in itself is quite sophisticated. First of all, it folds up and sits underneath the helipad. Secondly, when it's brought out and lowered over the edge of the building, obviously, because of the shape of the facade, to get the cradle into the neck of the curve, there's a system of pulleys which brings the cradle into the facade, and built into the diagrid are hooks which you cannot see from ground level, and therefore you then hook the cradle onto that. When this exercise was carried out, the client was a little distressed at the time frame. So investigations were made, and in fact, we are now using abseilers. So these guys actually throw themselves off the building. They are abseiling down the building, because you can put 10, 15, 20 people where you can only get 4 or 5 in the cradle. So the speed at which the glazing can be cleaned is in fact far quicker. So it is again a first in Doha that we have men abseiling down the tower cleaning the facade.
And that sounds like a new extreme sport.
It does
of some
indeed.
kind
We shall
for me.
have to.
Hotspot for extreme sports.
One tries to photograph, and of course they are, very tiny relative to the.
And they do this how often?
It's a lifetime job.
Well, but I mean, how often is the cleaning cycle on the building? Is it a constant thing?
It's starting out at every 3 months, because they take with something like about 10, 12, 15 people, they can clean the building in a week, whereas with the cradle it was taking 3 times that. So the actual cleaning depends upon the time of year. We have quite strong north winds twice a year. Now during that period there is a lot of wind-blown sand, and therefore the cleaning process would be, the schedule would be tighter during that period than it would during the summertime, and so on and so forth. So
How does the building address the weather? Because I guess that you have the extreme heat here as you would throughout much of that region.
right, I mean, this comes back to the glass and the
that's a
research
high
that was carried
sunshade
out.
protection glass.
Yes.
So in the beginning of design, we were thinking about double glazing with the sunsheet in between the 2 layers of glass. But at the end of the day, this was something which we had to give to the client, that we only have one glazing with sun protection glass.
Correct.
Which is highly efficient.
Of which there was quite an amount of research carried out because of the amount of glazing. Quite a lot of research was carried out. Again, the company who developed this high-strength glass, it's got high heat absorption, which again, therefore, reduces the amount of necessary cooling load within the building. And
Is there a level of sustainability in the building in terms of cooling, or is it done more the traditional way?
we have it's a water-cooled basis, which is obviously recycled. So the water goes through the cooling towers into the chillers, and the cold water distribution, or the chilled water distribution, is how many risers? 3 risers and then into a ring main on each floor to distribute the chilled water to the air handling units.
You look at this building, and one of the things that it reminded me of, speaking of cooling towers, is the cooling tower on a nuclear reactor, which which I asked some people about it, and if there was any functionality as a result of its shape in cooling the building, and I guess the answer is no. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So that's just the shape you came up with, and it's strictly the aesthetic and not any functional functional aspect.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
The light show on the building, getting back to that, is quite a nice little perk of that building. And tell me about the designer again, and then the artist who designed the light show for this building. And I guess there's motion lighting on here that suggests the torsion of a tornado. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This design was done by a German artist called Thomas Emde, and at every cross we have 30.
Every second floor.
Every second
second
floor we
level.
have the lighting, which is where you can illuminate the structure or the point itself.
Yes.
And due
Yes.
to the LED technology, you can vary all colors in every single point like you want to do. So you can have it moved, you can just give it one color or change it and simulate a tornado, whatever you want to do.
Yes.
So I think there are
35,000
different
variations.
variations possible
Yes.
in lighting.
Yes.
What do they typically do with it? Is there a lighting program? How do they take advantage of that?
I'm not aware. I think that typically it's in one color. It's not changing
It's in one color.
because the problem is then it's like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
might be the problem with the possibilities in this system, that it becomes like a Christmas tree, and I think you have to be careful how to use the lighting system.
But somebody has to design the actual lighting schemes for that.
Yes,
That's not something you can
artist did
point
it.
and click. So those were designed by an artist.
Yes.
They were indeed.
They were indeed.
Basically, the lighting units, they contain 12. Each unit contains 12 LEDs, of which the color, you can change the color and the intensity as to whether you want a pinpoint of light at that point, or you wish to disperse the light along the diagrid. So you would have, as I mentioned earlier, the lighting units are every 2 floors, so you can get the light coming down and the light coming up to enhance the diagrid, or you can have a tornado type pattern through the building. You can have the building completely one color, or you can have a separate, say for example, say a blue at the bottom, a red in the center, and a blue again at the top. You have an amazing amount of variations. The owner, when the display was actually demonstrated to him, went away quite amazed. With regards to the software, sorry, that was
Somebody else's
dare I say, a
task.
secretive situation. Yes. So, but obviously, yes, computer controlled, and they can.
But
Do they
have
use
different programs.
do they use a motion lighting scheme, or is it all just static?
Sorry, say
Do
again.
they use a motion lighting scheme, a moving lighting scheme, or is it all pretty much static?
No, it's static.
Yeah,
Yes.
because that would really be
Yes.
a very tall vortex if they decided
Quite so.
if they decided to go for that.
This was also a challenge to get this lighting done, because the diagram is 14 meters each, and so you have from one light to the other, it should have 7 meters of lighting, but it's close to the surface. You know, you don't have an angle for the light to light on the grid. So we have to look for the painting of the grid, which have some reflections to get it lighted. You know. So
Because there would be nothing worse, of course, you see, that you're trying to get the diagrid as a prominent feature through the lighting. And in order to get the surface texture correct, again, off-site experiments were carried out on several materials to ensure that you could get the spread of light along that material. Otherwise, that situation would fall on its face. It wouldn't be able to happen. So again, things have evolved, even following the final design and so on and so forth. Quite a number of experiments.
I'm going to conclude here just by asking you about the future, because your firm's been in this market for so long, and it seems like this building has left a true legacy of sorts for future development there that is really based on an identity that is unique to that place, which probably wasn't an easy thing to establish. Is that true, and what kind of future do you see for this part of the world?
The future is, to some extent, dictated by the government of Qatar. They have recently, in the last 2 years, allocated an area north of Doha, which is called Lusail, which is another small township in itself, which is divided into certain zones, which is an entertainment zone, a waterfront zone, but there is also an energy zone where the big energy companies will be basing themselves to carry out further research into clean fuels. As a result of that, the government of the state of Qatar have determined that this area shall be, dare I use the words, totally environmentally friendly. Now, this is a difficult situation in an arid desert situation. It's not Middle America. It's so that is the way that Qatar is moving forward, is moving into renewable, sustainable energy, low-emission vehicles, trying to encourage people to ride bicycles, which of course is not easy when it's 49 degrees C outside. So that is the way forward. So again, we at CICO, we've been carrying out various researches on not only recycling surface water, which does not rain a huge amount, but recycling grey water from washhand basins and the like, encouraging green areas, roof gardens, and that, to me, and the state of Qatar, is the way forward. So there is still a chance for another tornado tower, but it will be, whilst on tornado we have a certain amount of recycling, and the surface water is recycled for irrigation. We have motion detectors for the lighting and the taps in the services, washrooms, and so on and so forth. So, in a nutshell, that's the way forward that Qatar is going.
Yeah, I can fully admit what Stuart's saying, and I think important for this country is at its monarchy, that His Highness is very well orientated in environment, education,
yes,
and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I think that this country, having the strength of industrial development, and it's not only artificial development, maybe like in other countries, will give them the power to proceed with what they are starting now, and they have a clear view in education and
yes,
proper environmental issues.
Well, and you mentioned that the country, their future is really in natural gas and not in oil, that they're expanding that market,
very much
right?
so. Very much so. Yes, yes. To that extent, if I may, there is, or has recently been announced, the setting up of what is to be called the Gas Forum, which is the OPEC equivalent with regard to, liquefied natural gas producers such as Qatar, Russia, Iran, and the like. This Gas Forum will have its headquarters in Tornado Tower. So again, yes.
So there's the way forward. Stuart Allen and Frank Zabel, thank you for talking about Tornado Tower, the best tall building in the Middle East and Africa for 2009. Thanks for coming.